Hello, La Cañada families. My name is David Paskowitz. I'm the lead instructional specialist for grades TK through 8. And I wanted to share a recent digital citizenship activity that we worked on in the 7th grade math classes. This was called My Media, and was asking students to track their media usage over the course of an average day. Now, I asked the students to have a little bit of activity and mindfulness, right? I played a little bit of the spa zen music and asked them to imagine their average day. Oftentimes, students are awoken by their cell phone, an alarm goes off, and as soon as they grab their phone, instantly they see the alerts for their Snapchat friends' postings. They might look at the news headlines, they might check their email. Then maybe they're looking at a website as they're brushing their teeth, maybe playing a video game during breakfast. On the drive to school, they're texting their friends, hey, what are you wearing today? When they get to school, maybe the students are using their Chromebooks in class, and maybe they've got an extra tab open, and while the teacher is teaching, maybe they're looking at something else too. Maybe at break and at lunch, they're looking at screens. When they come home, maybe homework is now taking a little bit longer than it used to because they're doing a little bit of homework and doing a little bit of YouTube, and then doing a little bit more homework and texting their friends. And maybe that's not the best thing to do, and we talk about this during the lesson. And maybe at night, everybody's in the family, we're sitting around watching a movie together as a family, but everybody's on their phones. And at night, as the students are trying to go to sleep, they're scrolling through their phones and staying up till 11, 12, 1 a.m. And is that the best thing? So I ask the students to wake back up. We're back into the class now. And we talk about a lot of the habits that we're now forming around our digital media usage may not be the most beneficial for us as growing learners. Now, the day before, the teachers gave the students an activity to log all of their time using media. And this could be listening to music, it could be, hearing, your news radio in the car, texting friends on Snapchat, Instagram, playing video games on a video game console, watching TV, watching YouTube, watching Netflix, all of these things. We're asking the students to sit back and log everything that they did and then add it up at the end. And then on the other side of the piece of paper, we ask them to graph it to see really where they're spending most of their time. And as you'll see right here, it goes up to 240 minutes or 4 hours. And this is basically the limit, but some of the students we talked to actually spent more time. They actually exceeded the spots on the graph. And I asked the students to, talk in their table groups about what they found. And I led them through a series of questions. Was anyone surprised that they used so much media? Why? And some of the students noted that they spent longer times on certain types of media, bigger chunks of time. And other students said, well, wait, I'm noticing I've got a lot of small bits that my digital media time is 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and that really adds up over time. And they were very surprised by that. I also asked, was anyone surprised by how little media that they used? And I got some hands too, and that was encouraging that, hey, I thought I used a lot more, or my parents think I use a lot more media. Next question, I said, what are some of the common activities that people at your table group would do with digital media? And a lot of texting, a lot of YouTube, and then some of the less common activities, things like playing the video game The Sims, which is a kind of a world-building video game, which I'm sure has its own addictive qualities to it. Pinterest, things like that. We're finding that a lot fewer students are using time on game consoles. A lot more students are using, playing video games on their phones or on their Chromebooks. Do you do more things with digital media in or out of school? This was an interesting question. It was basically split 50-50. Some students do more at school with classwork, maybe some distractions sometimes, and some students spend a lot more time on their devices at home. Question, do you do more things with digital media alone or with other people? Well, this was an interesting question. As I was walking into the classroom before the lessons, I was noticing some students. They were all standing around in a circle before school started. They were all in a circle. They were together, but they were all staring at their own individual phones. And I said to the students, are they alone or are they with other people? Tough question, right? Or what if you find your child staring at their phone, texting furiously, but they're talking to other friends? Are they alone or are they with other people? And the students have a lot of different ideas about this. It might be something that, as parents, we can have some good conversations with our children. Are you alone or are you with other people? And what are the values of being with other people? Question about consuming versus producing digital media. Some classes of students, they were admitted that they were all just consumers. But other classes, they said, no, I'm doing writing. I use my iPad. I've got an art app on my iPad, and I'm making digital creations. I'm creating my portfolio. Some students produce music. Some edit video games. So when we dug in a little bit deeper, students are starting to see that, yeah, they are creating. And I'm encouraged by that. I would much rather our students and my own children to be creators rather than just pure consumers. I asked a question, who in the group had the most time? Kind of some good conversation over this. And I started the lesson saying, look, I'm not judging here if you spend a lot of time with digital media or not, because as an adult in the 21st century, I'm also looking at screens a lot, and I'm working on this. So my goal of the lesson, as I told them, was just to have an honest understanding of how much media we use, and then from there have the conversations. But just to kind of surprise the students with, hey, list how much you're doing, and then we're gonna criticize. That wasn't the point of this. Next question, what forms of digital media do group members seem to use the least? And are there aspects of your classmates' media lives that you found particularly interesting? And, some of the most interesting ones were students that don't use a lot. They're like, well, what do you do? Why don't you? Why did you only log 55 minutes of screen time in a day? What were you doing? Then I shifted the conversation a little bit, and I just have a few screen grabs of some articles that I'd found. How the internet is altering your mind. Does internet usage rewire the human brain? Can the internet affect neuroplasticity? And we defined this word, neuroplasticity being the ability for the brain to rewire itself. And, researchers at UCLA are doing a lot of work on this, therapies to help the brain heal. But at the same time, I'm sure you're noticing with ourselves, maybe we don't use our handwriting as much anymore, and our handwriting is suffering. We don't necessarily need to memorize phone numbers anymore. Our robots can do it for us. And we're noticing that our students are very good Google searchers. And that's a good thing. That's really a skill that people need in the 21st century. But at the same time, maybe we're not absorbing and keeping and storing information in our brains in the same way. So we talked about this concept. And there was an article, when was this? 2008, an article in The Atlantic by Nicholas Carr, Is Google Making Us Stupid? And he followed that up with his book called The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. And we talk about the idea that, our brains can rewire themselves in new ways. So I brought up this concept, and some of you may have seen this before, and I'll just play just a few moments of it. The idea of the big rocks, and what are the big rocks in your life. And I told the students that the big rocks in their life were family relationships, friend relationships, healthy diet and sleep, schoolwork. These are the big rocks. These are the most important things. The smaller rocks are things like Girl Scouts and violin lessons and club soccer and all those things that we schedule our children to do so much. Sometimes those can crowd out the ideas of the big rocks. And then these blue pebbles, or sometimes you'll see this as sand, these are all the things that are noisy in our lives, the Snapchat feeds and things like that. And the idea is that if we put priority on the least important things, it crowds out the big rocks. So we talked with the students about this, that if you make time, make priorities for the big rocks in your life, then you have time for the small rocks, and all of the unimportant things can fill in the blanks, and we've got plenty of time for everything in our 24 hours in a day. So we talked about that. And I would also say, to be honest, that I don't know if we need to fill in all of these blank spaces with something, with checking our screens or checking our social media. We talked about the concept of having our brains turn off and actually be bored once in a while. That's where creativity really comes from. These are conversations that would be really great to have around the dinner table. I issued a challenge to the students. You might think this is crazy, you might scoff. And I told the students that. I said, your parents might think this is crazy. But the challenge, we spend so much time and we're really outsourcing a lot of our brain power and our thinking and our socialization out to digital media, out to our devices. So I challenged the students to bring their parents on board, maybe their older siblings, and have a 24-hour tech cleanse. I've seen this on the internet, some places called a tech Sabbath, a one day of rest where we don't look at our devices because we're so bombarded all the time. So what I offered to the children was this concept. Take a day, take 24 hours, probably on a weekend when mom and dad don't need to be using their devices for work. But everybody turn off. Don't look at your devices, maybe put them on silent mode, maybe put them on airplane mode. And to get out of the house where you've got these habits of we're always just looking at our devices, maybe we go to the beach. And instead of using our GPS in our cars to get down to Santa Monica, maybe we wing it. Just take the 10 and see where it leads down to the beach. And when we get there, we don't use Waze to find a parking spot. And when we get out, if we're hungry, maybe we don't look at Yelp to see, how a certain restaurant is rated. Maybe we just go in and wing it. We take a risk. And if it was good food, it was good food. If not, we didn't take pictures of our lunch, and we can all have something to laugh about. Like, boy, that was a terrible restaurant. We don't take pictures at the beach. We use our eyes and look at the beautiful sunset. On the way home, we have the radio turned off. And we actually have a conversation. And, maybe there will be some awkward silences. That's what I'm proposing. I would challenge all of our parents to do this. I was talking to a 6th grade class a few months ago about this, and I actually did it because I didn't want to be a hypocrite about it. I did it for 24 hours. It was kind of challenging because I had to go and try to find the clocks in my house rather than looking at my phone for the time. But I did it, and it was actually doable. It was challenging, not easy, but I did it, and I would encourage you to do this as well. This is something that can really start a lot of conversations. Now, I bring this up saying, and I asked the students, how many of your households have a tech-free dinner time? Most hands went up, and I think that's awesome. And I also asked, have any of your families ever tried a cleanse? And some hands went up. One student said, yeah, I did this on my own, and I liked it so much for a day, I did it for an entire week. Other students talk about how easy it was. Maybe they went camping and there was no cell service. But these are things that we can do to not necessarily take back the rewiring of our brains from technology, but to really talk about those skills, be intentional about the skills that we want to build in our families. We're talking eye contact and the ability to carry on a thoughtful conversation beyond just a few, points and clicks. And these are when we take this time and we're thinking about, what's important to us. I think we can have a really good opportunity for that. So this was just one digital citizenship lesson in 7th grade math classes. We talk a lot about different things, staying safe online, don't go down those dark alleys of the internet. If you see cyberbullying happening, be an upstander, come to people's defense. So our job here at La Cañada Unified is really, we want to teach more than just how to push buttons on the computer, how to create a spreadsheet. We want our students and your children, which is very important to us, to be safe and responsible users of technology too. So we thank you for your support, and we want to be here for you and give you the support because we know that the technology is changing the way students are learning, and it's changing, how our households run as well. So we encourage you, if you have any feedback, please email me at dpaskowitz@lcusd.net or dpazz@lcusd.net, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about this. Thanks very much, families, and we will talk to you soon.